Good day, everyone. In this video, we'll learn more about Sanji's history from One Piece as you view a simple drawing of Sanji's visage. Just keep on watching. Sanji was born in the North Blue into the Vinsmoke family, the reigning royal family of the Germa Kingdom, along with his three brothers on the same day, with Sanji being the third son of the family, thereby making him the kingdom's third prince. Sanji's father, Vinsmoke Judge, planned to genetically enhance all of them before birth to make them have superhuman abilities and no emotions, and thus turn them into perfect soldiers in the future. His mother, Vinsmoke Sora, was against this practice, and while being still pregnant, she took a drug that would ensure they would grow as normal humans with emotions. This intent resulted successful only on Sanji, at the cost of severely weakening her own health beyond recuperation. While Sora was still alive, Sanji once prepared a meal for her. Even though the meal was ruined while Sanji was delivering it to her hospital, it made her smile, and she decided that she would only eat what he had made for her, sparking an interest in cooking for Sanji. Vinsmoke Judge revealed to his children at a young age that he had endowed their bodies with genetic enhancements, and his plan for Sanji and his four siblings to lead their kingdom's military arm Germa 66 in the future, and began training them to capitalize on their genetic potential. While Sanji's siblings excelled at their exercises and their bodies evolved, Sanji continually lagged behind due to his body remaining human thanks to the drug Sora took prior to his birth. This made him an easy target for his brothers, who bullied him regularly, and Judge did not intervene due to his disdain for Sanji's weakness. One day, Judge caught him serving food to a rat in his room and shouted that Sanji would need to stop cooking and train even harder if he wanted to catch up with his siblings. He then threw the food and the rat out of the palace, causing Sanji to cry. Sanji continued to be beaten up by his brothers regularly, with his sister Reiju occasionally tending to his injuries. Eventually, Judge became convinced that Sanji would never develop superhuman abilities and decided to erase his son's existence from his future plans by putting an iron mask on him and locking him in a Vinsmoke Castle dungeon. At the same time, he staged a state funeral for his son, informing the onlooking Germa 66 soldiers that Sanji had died in a tragic accident. During the next 6 months of Sanji's imprisonment, his mask was only removed when receiving meals from the guards. At some point, he read about the All Blue from a cookbook he received. His brothers eventually discovered he was still alive and occasionally visited the dungeon just to continue bullying him. Reiju came to the dungeon to treat her brother's wounds but told him that she was not on his side. After the Germa Kingdom crossed the red line into the East Blue, Sanji declared to Reiju that he wanted to run away and become a chef. Reiju broke open Sanji's cell, allowing him to escape. As Sanji was fleeing, he ran into his father. Judge decided to allow Sanji to go on the condition that he never tell anyone about their relationship. While Germa 66 was attacking the island of Kozia in the East Blue, Reiju directed him to a cruise ship called the Orbit and told him to never come back to the Germa Kingdom. Having escaped the kingdom, Sanji cut all ties with his family and renounced his title as a prince. 2 years after he left the Vinsmoke family, a 10-year-old Sanji was working as a ship's cook on the Orbit. One day, Red Leg, Zeph, a pirate, and his crew, attacked the ship. However, both ships were caught in a sudden storm and sank. Zeph managed to save the young Sanji from drowning. Before the storm tore the boats apart, Sanji had cried out his dream to find the All Blue, which was why he was saved by Zeph afterwards. After the storm, the two were washed onto a rock outcropping, high above the sea. Despite their good fortune, there was little food for them. A few rations had washed onto the rock with them, but there was no vegetation, no animals, and no way to reach the water to fish. Splitting up what little rations remained, Zeph ordered Sanji to sit at the other end of the island to look for a ship. Sanji protested that Zeph was keeping a large sack for himself, but Zeph brushed him off, saying that as an adult, his stomach was bigger. Days passed, and Sanji had no more food, but there was still no sign of a ship. Many weeks afterward, an emaciated Sanji decided to take a chance to kill Zeph for his food. He did not kill the old man, but when he slashed open the old man's sack in a fit of rage, he discovered that there was no food inside, only treasure. To his horror, he realized that Zeph had given him all the rations, and had eaten his own leg to survive. Zeph confessed that he often lacked food on the high seas and planned on opening a restaurant on the seas. Sanji, guilty over plotting to kill Zeph, agreed to help, but Zeph remarked that he was too weak. Soon after, a ship appeared, and they were spared from death. Because of this ordeal, Sanji pledged to never refuse food to a starving individual, no matter how evil or poor they may be. In the manga, Sanji began smoking shortly after starting to work at the Bharati in order to impress Zeph, despite Zeph's warnings that it would destroy his taste buds, only for Sanji to reply, "Now, I am a man." Sanji subsequently spent the next 9 years working aboard the Bharati as its sous chef, during which time he vastly improved his cooking under Zeph's tutelage while also developing tremendous physical abilities and his signature kick-based martial arts style under the latter's guidance. While doubling as a waiter one day since the rest had jumped ship, Sanji served a particular couple at the Bharati, Marine Lieutenant Fullbody and his lady friend, Moody. Though Sanji served them well, his dismissiveness towards Fullbody made the Marine lose face in front of his date and the other customers. Angered, Fullbody dared to pick a fight with Sanji. Sanji, on the other hand, upon seeing Fullbody waste the food prepared for him out of frustration, beat the Marine up. 34. As the situation intensified with Paddy coming, Sanji was suddenly confronted by Zeph, who was at the moment dealing with some trouble. Luffy, seeing the mess that Sanji stirred up, Zeph immediately got into the argument as well. Just as things were going crazy as usual in the Bharati, a new development arrived. The prisoner that Fullbody and his men captured, Jin, had escaped and was then demanding food from the restaurant. Though dangerous, the starving pirate however was denied food from the other chefs and was kicked out of the restaurant. While his fellow chefs denied the pirate food, Sanji however gave the starving man food for which he gratefully ate. Luffy, who was witnessing Sanji at the time, was impressed by such a kind act and decided to invite Sanji to join his crew. Despite Luffy's offer, Sanji refused due to his own personal debt to Zeph. After seeing Jin off, Sanji went back to work and glanced upon one of Luffy's crew members, Nami. Seeing such a beauty, he declared his willingness to become a pirate as long as he was with her. Though the declaration was mere flirtation, the scene however intensified when Zeph butted in. After a brief argument between the two chefs, Sanji continued his flirting with Nami and gave a bad impression to Usopp with his womanizing nature. 2 days after the incident with Jin, Sanji and the rest of Bharati witnessed a fearful sight before them. Though wrecked, the ship, the dreadnought Saber, came before them. The ship belonged to Don Krieg, the pirate captain that Jin served under. With the knowledge of Bharati being a floating restaurant, Jin brought a starving Don Krieg and his crew before Sanji and the other chefs. As before all the chefs but Sanji refused to give food to such a dangerous person. However, no sooner had Krieg finished the food that Sanji gave him and regained his strength, the pirate showed his true colors. Demanding food for his men, Sanji complied with Krieg's request. However, because Krieg also demanded the Bharati, Sanji's efforts were hindered by the other chefs. Though Sanji's efforts to give food were hindered, Zeph instead gave food for Krieg's men. After a lengthy discussion, Sanji and the rest of the chefs of Bharati prepared for upcoming battle. Luffy, spurred by the turn of events, decided to join Sanji in defending the restaurant. However, before anything could happen, Don Krieg's ship was suddenly sliced up before the eyes of Sanji and the rest. Finding out that these new turn of events was caused by Mihawk of the 7 warlords of the sea, Sanji and the rest then witnessed momentarily a battle between this legend and one of Luffy's crew members, Roronoa Zoro. Though Zoro was skillful, Sanji and the rest witnessed Luffy's companion fall to the master swordsman. As the battle ended and they witnessed Luffy's devil fruit powers, Sanji and rest heard Zoro's vow to Luffy. With that finished, Sanji and the rest were able to concentrate on the battle with Krieg's forces. With his fighting skills learned from Zeph, Sanji was able to defeat a great deal of Krieg's men. One amongst them however was different from the rest. Pearl, the so-called invincible wall, was significantly stronger than them. Made fiercer by a blunder by Luffy, Pearl proved to be a real threat to Sanji. Despite this, Sanji was still able to handle his own against this tough opponent. Though Sanji was getting the upper hand against this opponent, in the midst of their battle however, a new surprise developed. As Sanji and the others were fighting, Jin snuck up on Zeph and took the old man hostage. With this, Sanji was asked to surrender. Jin continued to hold Zeph hostage. He negotiated with Sanji and Don Krieg to let the chefs leave the Bharati. However, Sanji is unable to accept the terms due to the honor debt he felt he owed to Zeph for saving his life as a small boy. Sanji refused to let Zeph give up another one of his treasures. Seeing this behavior, the other chefs asked Sanji what he meant by this. As he was being attacked by Pearl, who took the opportunity for some payback, Sanji explained to them that in the past, Zeph sacrificed everything, including his own leg, so that he could live. Sanji explained to them all that it was his obligation to Zeph. With this, Sanji stood still and took all of Pearl's attacks, ready to die for the Bharati. As Sanji was being attacked, however, Luffy did something unexpected. Luffy broke part of the Bharati, much to everyone's surprise. Angered by this sudden action, Sanji asked why. In response, Luffy told him that since the ship was the goal of Krieg and his men, destroying it would be the solution to the problem. Luffy also explained to him that Zeph did not save Sanji's life so that he could throw it away for the ship. As they were talking about all this, Pearl decided to attack once more. However, before Pearl could strike Sanji and Luffy, Jin suddenly defeated him. Explaining himself to Krieg, Jin stated that he will be the one to finish off Sanji. Told that this was a special honor for the food that he gave Jin, Sanji battled with the pirate. Despite his skill, Sanji was overpowered by Jin due to being hindered from his earlier injuries. However, just as Jin was about to land the final blow, Sanji found himself before a supposedly heartless pirate unable to kill. Because of Sanji's previous kindness, his opponent was not able to bring himself to finish the job. While this saved Sanji from being bludgeoned by Jin, it angered Don Krieg. Krieg fired his MH5 bomb at them and Luffy threw Sanji and Jin 2 masks to protect themselves from the poison. Luffy also finds a mask for himself at the last second. When the smoke clears, they realize Jin had been poisoned, having thrown Luffy his mask to save him. With this turn of events, Sanji told the other chefs to help the poisoned Jin. As they were helping Jin, Sanji noticed an angered Luffy decide to go against Krieg. He then watched the two fight. As the battle raged, Sanji was told by Zeph to watch Luffy carefully. With every turn of the fight, Sanji was amazed at Luffy's determination against difficult odds. In the end, Sanji and the others witnessed Luffy do the impossible: break Don Krieg's famed impenetrable armor. Though this was a deciding blow, Sanji and the others saw that Krieg still had a few tricks. While this did not deter Luffy from ultimately defeating Don Krieg, the outcome however caused the young pirate captain to fall into the water. Seeing this and being told of Luffy's weakness, Sanji dove in and rescued Luffy. After a few moments with a slightly less poisoned Jin, Sanji gave the defeated crew of Don Krieg a little boat in which they can use to retreat in. With everything done, Sanji awaited an unconscious Luffy to tell all that happened. Though Sanji still refused to go with Luffy when he woke up, he however shared with him about his dream. As Sanji and Luffy then decided to have a well-deserved meal, they came before a surprising incident. Apparently, every chef there thought that Sanji's soup was disgusting. Though this got to Sanji, in truth, they were just making an excuse so that Sanji could go with Luffy and fulfill his dream of finding the All Blue. As Sanji was pondering about all this outside, he noticed a strange sight. The spectacle that crashed into Sanji and into the restaurant was one of the Luffy's traveling companions, Yosaku. Due to Nami taking the Going Merry during the battle with Don Krieg, Luffy's crew and traveling companions were forced to part midway and thus unable to fully aid Sanji and the rest. With Yosaku back, the bounty hunter asked Luffy to come with him back to the others for an urgent matter. As Luffy decided to accompany him, Sanji finally decided to become Luffy's chef. After a few moments with the other chefs and with himself, Sanji packed his stuff and went to go with Luffy and Yosaku. As he was leaving, Sanji was met with one last surprise. Zeph, a man who usually belittled Sanji one way or another, asked Sanji to take care of himself. Completely moved by this, Sanji fell to his knees crying and thanked Zeph for everything he'd done for him. However, he thanked while insulting them as he is a foul-mouthed most of the time. With an emotional Bharati behind, Sanji left with Luffy and Yosaku aboard his small ship, the Shimashima shopping. After regaining Nami, Sanji and his fellow crewmates sailed towards the Grand Line. Along the way, they decided to stop by Logatown for last-minute supplies for the journey ahead. 66. Knowing the need of his fellow pirates, Sanji bought some food, among which was an elephant tuna. Though the shopping trip was relatively uneventful, something suddenly happened as the day went on. Sanji's captain had suddenly been captured. In the midst of their trip around Logatown, Sanji's captain had been captured by an old foe of his, Buggy. Having been caught by this old foe, Luffy was going to be executed by Buggy on the same execution platform that Gol D. Roger died on. Seeing Luffy in danger, Sanji and Zoro immediately tried to rescue their captain. Though they were not able to reach Luffy in time, Luffy was nonetheless miraculously saved by a bolt of lightning. Regardless of how it happened, Sanji regrouped with his fellow crewmates to escape from Buggy and the Marines stationed in Logatown. As Sanji and his two companions were escaping, they were momentarily stopped by Captain Smoker. Despite the brief road bump and the sudden appearance of a mysterious storm, Sanji and the rest were able to regroup back on the Going Merry to begin their new journey into the Grand Line. As the Straw Hats sailed through the storm, Sanji pulled out a barrel for which he and his fellow crewmates could have a little ceremony. Swearing their dreams upon breaking the barrel, the Straw Hats sailed towards the Grand Line. That's the end of this video. I hope you learned something. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.